Beat up Bill 60, a lot of people really concerned. The Ford government had originally stated that at the end of a lease term, you could kick your tenant out, and that would be the end of that. Since then, we understand that the government's backtracked on that. A lot of confusion. And it's not just that, there's a lot to unpack in that tabled legislation. A lot of people think that this is now law and it's in force and effect. So I want you to unpack the other things that people aren't talking about and then talk to the people who are watching this video in terms of when to expect this, how it's going to work out, and if this is actually going to become legislation or not.
Absolutely. Now, I know there's a lot of hype about surrounding Bill 60, but just keep in mind, it's still, this is just the first reading. But here is what landlords need to know. So, number one, the termination date on the N4 notice for non-payment is going to be reduced from 14 days to 7 days. Number two, for the N12 personal use notice, if landlords are going to be serving that notice for their own personal use and they're going to be providing a minimum of 120 days notice in advance of the termination date, then compensation is not required to be paid. Number three, the Landlord and Tenant Board, or the Residential Tenancies Act, is now going to define what is persistent late payment, which is actually fantastic. Number four, stricter rules surrounding tenants raising issues at non-payment of rent hearings. So when a tenant is withholding rent, because let's say, for example, the landlord doesn't want to maintain the property, in order for the Landlord and Tenant Board to hear these concerns, they now have to pay 50% of the arrears that they owe. And last but not least, the request for review time, which is 30 days, is now going to be shortened to 15 days. Now, there's also some hype about surrounding security of tenure, which we anticipated that Ford was going to go back on, and that's on basically how to end a how to end a tenancy closer to the end of the lease or when the lease expires. Just remember, Ricky, that this is still the first writing, and we are also anticipating changes, either additions or uh, removal of some of the things that we spoke about until it actually goes and becomes part of the Residential Tenancies Act. Things are still up in the air.
Makes a lot of sense. And Bita, when you talk to landlords or tenants, we have to remember that the legislation, the Residential Tenancies Act, as it stands now, it's very fair and equitable, right? The rights for landlord and tenants are ingrained in there and they're reasonable. What causes, I think, a lot of the issues for both landlords and tenants is the fact that it takes forever for matters to be heard. And if there's something off with a file, you got to restart the process, and that's really putting pain and pressure on both the landlords and tenants. So hopefully, with some of these things that are proposed and the final piece that hopefully does get approved, we will start seeing a bit of relief from both landlord and tenant side perspectives. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Beat. I know this is going to clarify a lot of things. I'm receiving multiple calls from landlords celebrating this and also tenants who are very much in panic about the security of tenure. But the reality, again, guys, anybody watching to the end of this video, it's tabled. It's not actual legislation yet. Still going to go through the motions, but we'll keep you posted.